Hi there, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Aaron, and today we are talking about the one, the only, the great Pilsner.
A classic.
Classic. Now, Pilsner is a type of lager, which, if you remember, is made from a bottom fermenting yeast strain that's fermented at colder temperatures, as opposed to an ale, which are what most beers are. If we're talking about the variety of beers, most beers are going to fall under the ale category, and that means it uses a different kind of yeast, an ale yeast, which there are many different types, but that's top fermenting, and it ferments at warmer temperatures. So having a craft beer lager is a little bit on the rare side, just because it takes so much time when you're brewing to condition a lager that a lot of craft breweries don't have the space to do it or the time. This particular one is actually lagered, which comes from the German word lagern, which means to store or to cellar, for 5 weeks. And for a lot of breweries, that's just not possible given their financial restraints and situations like that. But anyway, it's a type of lager. This one is more specifically a German type of Pilsner. There's a German Pilsner, a Czech Pilsner. Those are the two main ones. Same kind of base beer, but the Czech Pilsner came along first, and then the German Pilsner came along after that. They pretty much just tried to brew the same beer, but they had to brew it using their local ingredients and their local water source, which was a little bit more mineralistic in content. So we came out with a different style, and thank goodness we didn't. This particular one is Great Divide Nomad. It is from Colorado. They've been around since, I think, 1994. They started an abandoned dairy factory. Really, really great brewery. They do a great line of Yetis. If you've ever seen the Imperial Stout line they have of Yetis. Really, really good brewery.
Yeah, this is a great beer. It actually holds pretty true to the German tradition of brewing Pilsners. So it's brewed with all Munich malt, Munich pale malt. It's brewed with a German yeast lager strain. And then also, it's brewed with Saaz hops, which are one of the noble hops of Germany. Now, what makes Pilsners different than your regular traditional German lagers like a Helles lager or even a Marzen is that they're brewed with higher levels of hops. So they have a slightly higher level of bitterness and higher IBUs as well. So that gives them kind of a crisp, slightly dry finish. It's not overwhelmingly hoppy, not like an American Pale Ale or an India Pale Ale, but it definitely has a nice hop presence to it.
All right, well, let's get it into a glass.
All right.
Now, when you say that, you said the word noble hops, is that a certain type of hop, or how does that differ from the hops that we've also been talking about?
Well, it's similar to the way that grapes in the wine world are designated as noble grapes. In Europe, everything is very highly regulated, and so certain types of beer can only be made with certain types of hops, much the same way that a Chianti can only be grown in the Italian region of Chianti, even though it uses a Sangiovese grape.
So where are the noble hops from?
Well, each country has their own noble hops.
Oh, okay.
So you have England has Tettnanger, and then Germany has both Hallertau and Saaz. The Czech Republic has some as well. It just depends on the region.
Okay.
Well, let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, well, it's definitely filtered. This is, I would guess, sterile filtration, right, Matthew?
Yeah, very, very polished, very clean. You can see right through it. I can almost make out my fingerprint on the other side of the glass.
Yeah, I can. It's very akin to apple juice.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice golden straw, very sunny, very bright, very reflective, with a pretty stark white head, a nice rocky mixture of bubbles, between tight and larger bubbles, pretty decent retention, and pretty much what I would expect from a Pilsner.
I would say it just kind of looks like a beer should look. A traditional beer, it looks exactly like that.
Absolutely.
Nothing weird or nothing weird.
Yeah, if you were to Google beer, this is the image that would come up.
All right. So on the aroma, I'm definitely getting a little bit of that hop character that you were talking about, more so than with a regular American lager or a regular European pale lager. I'm also getting some of that mineralistic quality, I think, from the water. There's some mineralistic elements to that.
Sure, and the hops in combination with the water are kind of creating this almost earthiness effect to it, which is absolutely expected for this style of beer. You also get some nice bready notes, some biscuity notes, some cracker or cereal notes, and that all comes from the Munich pale malt.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. there's a lot more flavor in there at first than the smell lets on. This one, the nose really doesn't prepare you for the taste.
Yeah, there's a lot more intensity in the flavor than there was on the nose. I mean, similar flavors. It just seems like everything's been turned up on the palate as opposed to what came through on the nose. I have to admit, it's been a very long time since I've had this beer, and I don't remember it being this flavorful.
You know, I don't think I've ever had it out of a bottle. I know I've had it a few times on draft, but that hop sensation really comes through starting in earnest about on the middle of the palate, and then as it rolls towards the end of the palate, there's a big punch, a big jump right at the end of the roll of the palate, where you're getting a nice bitterness right at the back and at the center of the tongue. It's not towards the sides; it's the center.
Sure, yeah, it's reminiscent of like cut grass. It's not extremely citric like you'll find from a lot of American styles of hops. But these European hops tend to be a lot more earthy and maybe more floral.
Yeah, and this goes without saying, you've probably already figured it out yourself, that this is a great beer to give someone who's maybe a little bit new to craft beer, because it is a lager, it is a bottom fermented beer, which characteristically has a little bit, actually a lot, smoother flavors, more rounded edges, they're just a little bit more approachable. And this one's a nice step up, because it's still got it still has that nice roundness, that nice smoothness to it, but it's still got a ton of flavor too, it's really surprising me how much flavor's in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pilsners are huge sellers, not only for the brass tap, but also worldwide. This is, like Aaron said, it's a great little beer to kind of get somebody maybe a half a step away from what they're familiar with, because it does have a bigger hop presence than some of your other macro lagers or a Miller Lite, which claims to be a Pilsner, though it really has little in common with the traditional Pilsner.
Yeah, it's almost like hops, their very first introduction to hops, or hops for beginners. If someone's just kind of starting out on that journey, they're not used to hoppy beers. I can't think of one that would be more appropriate than a Pilsner.
Yep. It's hops with training wheels.
Hey, exactly. Now, this is a German-style Pilsner. If that's still a little bit too hoppy for your guest, there is another style, the Czech-style Pilsner, which is a little bit more malt-forward and a little bit softer, but that's almost splitting hairs at this point. They're very, very similar.
Sure. And this is available not only in the bottle, as we have it here, but it's also available in draft. And Great Divide has a great distribution stamp. So chances are, no matter where you're watching this, you'll be able to get this product in, and you can sell it with confidence, that's for sure.
All right.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.